Hello, I'm David Hunt, and welcome to my little section of Bent TV, which is called Amazing People from Our Community. And this man today is an amazing person from our community. A son of Jewish Europeans. He has one sibling. We'll chat about that as well. He's so Melbourne. As a teenager, he worked at Myer with so many other really interesting jobs along the way in his early life, including working in a theatre. He owned 3 record stores as well. And my background is I actually worked for record companies, but by the time I got to Melbourne, he had already moved on. 29 years working in the court system, big volunteer. And this is the reason he's on today, because he's volunteered so much along the way, including VAC, Thorne Harbour these days, won the Minister of Health Volunteer Award as well. Colin Krycer, welcome to Bent TV.
Thank you.
All right, so Jewish boy.
Yes.
Were you born here in Australia?
I was born in Melbourne.
Right, okay.
Yes. Still living in the very same area that I was born in.
Right. Where?
I was born in East Malvern and I'm living in Murrumbina, so just across the road.
Oh, okay, fantastic. Parents still alive?
No, lost both mum and dad in the last 3 years.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So no grandparents because they were part of World War II, the Holocaust.
Yeah, so I never had any grandparents.
Right. So tell us, did your parents speak very much about the time back in, like, where was it? Where
in Poland. They both come from Poland. No, the answer is no.
Well, they didn't want to?
They didn't really want to. Mum came out as an orphan, as a very young girl, and was sent to New Zealand to an orphanage.
Right.
So she didn't really live the horrors of the war. Dad came out as a very young man. He managed to escape a lot of the horrors as well, but he ended up joining the Australian Air Force.
Oh, okay.
But it's my dad's brother that was very badly affected and would talk about nothing else.
Oh, right.
He would relive it every day. And whenever I was with him, he would tell stories of the horrors that he went through in the concentration camp.
Oh, gosh.
But my parents, no, they didn't go to that length.
Which is a good thing, I think. Yeah. Brother, you have a brother?
Yes, I've got a very talented brother who's a musician.
Right.
And that's what he does as a profession.
Okay. In bands or?
In bands, yeah.
Right.
And he plays piano, guitar, double bass, just about anything. And
are you close with him?
Yeah, I am close with him physically. We don't live that far apart. And close with him and his family. But I didn't pick up any of the musical gene in terms of playing an instrument.
Oh, but you had record stores, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
When did you realise that you might be gay, or did you all of a sudden think, "Yep, I am"?
No, I always knew something was different. I had an attraction to other males when I was in primary school. You'd be attracted to your male teacher or other classmates.
Yeah.
So I always knew. But I didn't actually come out till much later on in my teens.
When did you come out to your parents?
I would have been around 17 years of age.
Oh, gee, that's young.
Yes, but it was a situation where I had no choice but to tell them at the time. Something was happening with friends and whatever, and I admitted to being gay.
To your friends?
No, to mum and dad.
To mum and dad. But Jewish boy, that would have been a big thing in that community.
It was like they'd lost a son. They went straight into into mourning.
Whoa!
As if I died.
Oh,
they'd lost their son.
Yeah.
They had no idea. So it took them a long time to get over it. But in the meantime, they decided to send me to a psychiatrist who told me that it would be best, or told my parents it would be best if they removed me from Melbourne, away from the influence of my friends. And so they sent me to Sydney to live as a teenager.
And Sydney.
Where I made more gay friends.
Yeah.
Jewish gay friends, mind you.
Yeah.
I met Jewish gay people.
So in the Jewish community, you're like Pride March now,
Yeah.
and you're involved in Pride
Yes.
March. Hundreds march in the Jewish
The
group.
Jews of Pride contingent.
Yeah, and you play all the music. You have a thumping and out of a van.
That's right. Every year in Pride March,
Yep.
the Jews of Pride's made up of many Jewish organisations that are either gay or allies of LGBTI.
Yep.
So you've got synagogues, you've got youth groups, you've got Jewish Care, you've got so many different Jewish organisations join in with Aleph, the Jewish gay group, marching down Fitzroy Street to all this Israeli music blaring out of speakers, and it's great fun.
Oh, it's the impact was huge this year. But where I was going with that is that it's so open now. But back then, Colin, you're like, I could imagine it would have been a real dirty word in the Jewish community.
Well, it kind of was. And I went to a Jewish high school, college. And I mean, there's no way I would have come out at that age in that sort of environment. Yeah, look, things have changed a great deal. I belong to Aleph, which is an LGBTI social and support group for LGBTI Jews, and that's been going about 27 years now, and we've now got a place on the Jewish Community Council of Victoria, which was very difficult to get because of the objections that came from the Orthodox members of that council that did not want us involved. And we didn't want us to be sitting at the table with all the other organisations. So yeah, it was pretty tough, but it's a lot's changed.
Okay, so there you are in Sydney, meeting more gay people than you knew here. How long did you last in Sydney?
It was only really a matter of maybe 6 months I was in Sydney. I ended up working in the equivalent of Maya in Sydney, which
Grace Brothers.
No, Farmers. Actually, it was called Farmers back then.
Okay.
And I was boarding with friends of my parents, but I ended up coming back home.
Right. And how did they react when you came home? Was it okay? Were they starting to understand?
Look, I probably at that point I wasn't doing very much in the gay community, and I really didn't know a lot of gay people back then. So it would be another couple of years before I really got more involved in Melbourne's gay community.
Yep.
So we really didn't talk about it a lot.
Right. Okay. So you just went on with your life, and they made out it really isn't happening. Kind
of. Yep. Although it did come to a stage where I was involved with Joy radio station and with the VAC, Victorian Aids Council. They knew that I was doing those things, and they were kind of proud of the work that I was doing.
Oh, that's good.
So yeah, it did take a while that we talked about it more openly, but otherwise you tended to sort of brush it under the carpet a little bit.
When you were working at Myers as a teenager, there was a protest march going on.
Yeah,
out front.
there was. I worked on the ground floor in the Burke Street store and behind the cigarette counter. We used to sell cigarettes at Myer. But
shame on you.
Who would have thought? And there was this protest march coming through from Burke Street through to Little Burke Street. And it was a whole group of people with placards, and they were shouting, "Ho, ho, homosexual." And it was...
What year was that, or roughly?
I can't remember. I mean, I was around 17 at the time, so we're looking at around 49 years ago.
Yeah, right. So that would have been a pretty big deal, that
back
protest
then,
march. Yeah.
Yeah, that was part of, the gay liberation movement.
Yeah.
Back then, that was probably my first exposure to a large group of gay people in one place.
And talking about being gay, you worked at as a part-time in theatre.
Yeah, I managed to get a job at Her Majesty's Theatre in Melbourne when they had their own in-house sound audio department, which is all contracted out these days. And I worked as a sound assistant behind the musical Pippin with John Farnham and Colleen
Right, which was a huge success, wasn't it?
And it was great fun. I loved working in the theatre.
But hold on, where did this interest come for all the sound? Because you've followed this through in your entire life.
I have followed it through.
Did you have a professional training?
No, I had no professional training. It's just like some people are interested in stamp collecting, and some people are interested in racing cars, or some people are interested in flower arrangement. I had this thing for audio equipment and sound, and I was just fascinated as a kid how someone can have a microphone and the sound can come out of a loudspeaker. How does this all work? I'm really keen on this idea, and I want to learn more about it.
Yeah.
And it just became a thing.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And you've got all the equipment.
Yeah.
Like you actually, a lot of the LGBTIQ events, you're there with your equipment as the sound person.
Which lives in the garage.
And you do it all as a volunteer. You don't get paid for any of that.
I do it as a volunteer, on a voluntary basis. And of course, there's no charges involved. I do it because it's fun.
And it's nice to not pay for stuff like that.
Well, I don't like to see an organisation, if they're doing a fundraising event and they have to hire equipment.
Yep.
I'd rather them not hire the equipment, and I'll just provide it.
Yep.
And save them some money. So I'm doing some good. I'm having some fun.
Now, you worked in the law courts for 29 years.
29 years.
Wow. And you, in your little notes that you sent me, you said that you loved it.
I did.
Why? Because of some of the stories you would have heard?
Yeah, look, it's a combination of the stories and the court cases and the people that I was working with and meeting, the judges and magistrates and the judiciary, the barristers. It was just another world. It was just fascinating and I loved it. And I was still doing what I liked with sound because I was digitally recording all the court proceedings, recording video and audio together digitally.
So you were learning more and more about it with that role, weren't you?
Yeah.
And at Her Majesty's as well.
That's right. That's right.
And these days you would have to have a degree to do things like that.
Possibly. You could be quite right, but I just happened to, to pick up the knowledge that I needed to get the job done.
Yeah.
But look, the law courts was, as I say, it was another world.
Yeah.
And I miss it. I miss the people I work with.
And you retired after that, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah.
I was made redundant, public service, cutbacks.
Yeah.
And then I decided to retire.
Right. But prior to that, you had 3 record stores.
I did, actually.
And I didn't realise that. And you didn't really realise that my background was
in records.
Record companies
That's
as well.
Right. That's right.
So why did you venture off and do that? What
happened was I was managing a record store in Brandon Park Shopping Centre, and in a nutshell, the owner of that store and I became business partners, and we opened up 3 record stores in the western suburbs.
Right.
And the rest was history. We did quite well out of that, and that was a great experience. We sold the business just as CDs were coming in, so we were selling vinyl.
Yeah.
And CDs were coming in, and that was the year that we sold. We just thought we'd put it on the market and see what would happen. We were quite happy doing what we were doing, but we thought maybe this is the right time, so we put it on the market. Sure enough, someone came along and bought the business.
And it was the beginning of Delta, which then went on to be Sanity, which is so famous here in Melbourne, the Sanity stores that went Australia-wide until like CDs and music stores were becoming obsolete.
That's true.
But there are still a few Sanity stores around, I believe. I don't know.
I don't know where they are, but you're probably
but
right.
that's interesting. And you were doing well out of that
we
store.
We did well out of that business. And then David, my business partner, ended up retiring into the country. He bought a little farm.
Yeah.
And I was able to purchase my first home.
From the money?
Yeah, from the sale. So
fantastic, Colin.
That sort of set me up.
Yeah. Now, back to your volunteering. VAC, which is Thorne Harbour
Health
these days. Working with people with HIV.
Yeah, my first volunteer position with VAC was to do with home care and home support, looking after people that were quite ill with HIV/AIDS. Now,
That's very ballsy of you to do that.
well, you've got to remember when this was, because that was in the height of AIDS in Australia.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys were getting very ill and unfortunately passing away.
Yeah.
They needed people on the ground to go out and look after clients, take them shopping, social support, just sit there, have a cup of tea, all sorts of jobs, gardening, house cleaning, anything. So there was a huge team of volunteers with VAC at the time, which is now Thorne Harbour Health.
Yeah.
And I became one of those people and did what I had to do.
Thank you that's wonderful support, because you were putting yourself at risk in a way, weren't you?
Well,
You didn't
not
think of
really.
that?
No. We knew what we were doing. There was AIDS or HIV was not an easy thing to catch, and we knew that.
Oh, okay.
So it was to be in someone's house, to be physically close to them, to whatever there was no risk involved.
So it's not like COVID where you can catch it
from a cough, just a simple cough, and that's it, and you're doomed.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like that. So
well, you're not doomed.
No,
you're just
you're not.
sick for 7 days. Yeah. But something beautiful has come out of it, and just recently, you were honoured and presented with a thank you and an award at the Victorian Pride Centre for how many years?
35 years with Thorne Harbour Health.
Right.
And I didn't know that was happening at the time, and I went to the volunteer thank you party this year at the Pride Centre, and the next thing you know, I'm up on the stage being awarded with a 35-year award, which was, I was quite chuffed.
Yeah.
It was nice.
Well,
but that's not the reason I do what I do.
No, but it still is nice to get that recognition. There is even bigger honour with one of the Ministers' awards. What award was that?
That was, I think it was 2017. There was the Minister of Health Volunteer Awards in Melbourne, and I was awarded with an award from, I think it was Jill Hennessy at the time, the Minister for Health, for my work with VAC as well. So again, I was a bit chuffed getting that. That was really nice. But if I could give these awards to every one of the other volunteers in all these organisations that I'm doing things with, I would, because it's not just me. I mean, there's people like yourself and all the people at Joy and all the people at Thorne Harbour and Switchboard and numerous organisations deserve such awards for what they do.
I think you're underselling yourself here, Colin. You have done beyond the call of duty with what you've achieved. And yes, there are other people doing little bits and pieces along the way, but you've done
I don't know about little bits and pieces. I'm seeing a lot of young people these days doing a tremendous amount of work. And I would love to have them all recognised individually.
Oh, well, that's lovely.
If possible.
Let's talk about the young people these days. You were saying so many young people are doing an amazing job.
Yeah.
And a lot of other people say, oh, now there's no AIDS, drama or this, that, and the other, and and we've got the Pride Centre now, and this and that, and you're like, oh, they're just going along for the ride now. You disagree with that?
Yeah, I think there's still a need for volunteers in the LGBTI community. There's a lot of work to be done, a lot of work that needs to continue, and so there's a place for young people, and the different organisations are coming up with different roles for volunteers as well, and new roles, especially Thorne Harbour Health. I know we've talked about them a little bit, but they've branched out from those days of HIV to so many different areas.
And I think they had to as well, because the AIDS crisis isn't like it was, and that's where all their effort was poured into
originally,
that.
Yes.
Yeah, and so now, and they're looking at old farts like you and me.
Yeah.
They're looking at that arena as well now.
That's right.
And along with and all the trans people support there.
Well, it's not a gay organisation. It's an LGBTIQ organisation, so it covers up broad spectrum
Yep.
of the community,
Yep.
and all sorts of health issues. It's not just HIV.
Absolutely. What about talking about youth minus 18? What do you think of that? What they're doing and how they've grown over the years? Again, mentioning Pride March, they have hundreds that march with them
Yeah.
at Pride March, and it's just so wonderful to see. You know, like where the situation with your parents back in the day, you know, like they sent you away. Where now kids can come out to their parents at school. And also at school and lead a normal life and don't really get picked on.
It brings me to the point of schools and what they're doing these days, because I'm also a director. I know you probably want to talk about this, but I'm a director of the Pride Foundation Australia, which is a philanthropic organisation, and you know, we give out grants to organisations Australia-wide. But one of the notable requests that we get all the time for each of our small grant rounds is from schools wanting to put books in the library that are LGBTI related.
Fantastic.
For the students.
Yeah.
And we get so many requests for money to buy books.
Yeah.
That just goes to show that wouldn't have happened 20, 30, 40 years ago.
No.
You wouldn't have found, you know, a book about coming out in your school library.
Yeah. That is wonderful. I never thought of that, and why would I? But isn't that great?
And schools wanting to paint walls in rainbow colours, and we get schools wanting to put flagpoles up so they could fly a rainbow flag. You probably weren't aware of all this happening behind the scenes, but they're the requests that we're reading at Pride Foundation Australia.
Right. What is it? Pride Foundation?
Pride Foundation Australia.
And it's Australia-wide?
Australia-wide philanthropic organisation.
Right. How did you get involved in that?
I got asked if I would like to become involved many years ago by Carol Wilkinson, who was from Joy.
Yep, she was the president of Joy.
She was the president of Joy,
Yeah.
and she was on the board of the Pride Foundation. It wasn't called Pride Foundation way back, it was called GALFA.
Right.
We changed the name to Pride Foundation. She said, Colin, you'd be a perfect fit for this organisation with all your fundraising stuff and whatever. And I said, yeah, it sounds really good. So I've been a director for quite some time, and I work with the small grants part of Pride Foundation. We do larger grants, obviously, as well. So with Carol, she got me involved in that, and I've been with Pride Foundation ever since as a volunteer director.
Yep.
And everyone on Pride Foundation board is a volunteer.
Right. So where does the money come from for the grants? Do you go to the governments and apply for grants there, or is it donation?
It's mainly donations and bequests.
Right.
And also we get support from the corporate world, and we get some government support, which we use to employ part-time admin staff. Because it's, you know, there's a lot of work that goes on in the background.
Yeah.
We don't always have the time. So having some part-timers funded from the government really helps.
And where's the office? Is it here in Melbourne, or there is no office?
There's no office. We're such a voluntary organisation. All our board meetings are done from our own homes via Zoom.
Right.
And we meet up once every year or two as a board. We all come together, but there's no office building, there's no photocopying machines, there's no filing cabinets as such in an office. It's all done from our home.
You know, when's it going to stop for you? You know, like you just keep on giving and you're like, but you say you enjoy doing what you do.
I enjoy well, I guess I wouldn't be doing it otherwise, but where's it going to stop? No, I don't see a time that it's going to stop. I just keep on doing what I'm doing. It's fun. One of the biggest benefits about doing what I've been doing is the number of people that I've met and friends that I've made, which is just really mind-blowing when I get to think of it.
So how involved are you with the gay Jewish community? Well, not gay, LGBTIQ.
I'm putting in as much time as I can afford because I like to have my finger in many pies.
Oh, so I would have never guessed that.
Yeah. Look, the biggest thing that I'm probably working on at this point in time would be Pride Foundation Australia. And when I can spend some time with Aleph and with the Jewish gay community, I can. But as I say, I like to spread my time.
What do you think about the Victorian Pride Centre? I often see you going in there or leaving there because I live around the corner from it. How important is that building and what it's done for the LGBTIQ community?
That's a great question. The more I enter the Pride Centre, the more I think, wow, this is just an amazing achievement. Something we were very, very lucky to have, especially Melbourne to have it before Sydney. I thought that was mind-blowing that we were able to do it. And there are so few of these centres around the world. There are others, but
I think there's only about 2 or 3 purpose-built ones in the world.
Yeah, and this is purpose-built and a beautiful building. And it just, when you walk in there and you think, this is home to so many organisations under one roof. An amazing achievement for Melbourne.
Yeah.
That I think we should all be very, very proud of.
But I think like you said before Sydney, but I think community and community organisations are a lot stronger here in Melbourne than it is in Sydney. Sydney isn't that sort of city, is it? Where Melbourne is community driven. You look at Joy, you look at Channel 31, where we're sitting now.
That's right.
There are so many, and that's 2 media outlets. And then you're looking at Triple R and PBS, the other radio stations that are so strong and powerful. Sydney has hardly any community radio.
I get that same impression as well. Melbourne, if you're involved in the LGBTI community in Melbourne, you tend to know so many other people that are involved in organisations around you, and that it's like family, friends and family that you're doing, work with. Sydney, I don't know. I don't want to say the wrong thing, but it just doesn't. It's a different environment. It's different. It just gives the impression of being a party city, very cliquey community to get into. I don't want to offend anyone or say the wrong thing, but Melbourne is just so community orientated. And as I say, many of us as volunteers work with several organisations. So there's all that intertwining of, relationships with other people from other organisations.
Yeah. And like the big one, Mardi Gras, of course, out of Sydney, but there's hardly any members. Like you used to have to be a member to be able to get into the party, then they dropped that years ago. But it's so big, but it's a commercial.
It's a huge commercial organisation.
And it's where Pride March here in Melbourne is grassroots, and it goes on forever.
It does.
Because there are so many groups now, or so many organisations that have now got their LGBTIQ or their rainbow a part of their business. And like the little primary school at, like next door to where the Pride March starts from.
They're marching.
They march.
Yeah.
And there was a gay teacher and some of the parents said, we should march. And he went, I don't want to put the pressure on the school doing it myself. You guys do it. And the parents did it and the kids loved it.
They love it. And you couldn't imagine seeing those kids in a Mardi Gras parade.
No.
But you'd see huge corporate floats in a Mardi Gras parade. I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but that's the impression we're getting. Where Melbourne's much more grassroots community,
and have never let the Pride March become too commercial. Like the only cars that can be in it, well, there's police cars and there's fire engines and trams that go down the middle of the street as part of the parade. But the only cars that are in it are for veterans and people like that.
Or motor friends.
Or motor friends, of course, and yes. Or
and the dykes on bikes.
Dykes on bikes. But you can't have floats.
No, it's not a float parade.
Yeah, it's all about the lovely nitty-gritty of what this city is about. Yeah. Communities and volunteers like you that make this all work.
Yeah, that about sums it up. It's very much a community
city.
A city. It's something that I'm very proud to be a part of. and it's great fun as well. And boy, oh boy, the amount of people I've met through the LGBTI community in Melbourne, it's just, it is absolutely mind-blowing.
Colin Krycer, thank you so much for chatting with us today. And thank you for everything you do in the community. You're a national treasure. No, a Victorian treasure.
Well, thank you very much. I don't see myself that way.
Oh, you are.
But that's a very kind thing to say. And thank you for the opportunity to have a chat with you.
No, my pleasure. We'll see you again real soon. I'm David Hunt, and this is Bent TV.